Hello everyone, my name is Delisa Oluma and I'm a software engineering student at Makerere University. I'm going to be taking you through two questions in this video, and the questions are, can computers think? And the second one is, could we ever have computers that are able to think in the context or environment of an audience engagement and analytics, which is able to detect people's faces, the facial movements and tensions, and then classify them according to a given set of emotions. So straight away, let's get into what we're going to do today. But first, before we get into the question, can computers think? We're going to ask ourselves what thinking is and what intelligence is. So let's get into it. What is thinking? According to John Searle, computers have already been thinking for over 30 years. But let's get into the basis and what is happening on the ground. What is thinking? Thinking is the process of using your mind to consider something carefully, not the keyword in this definition, which is mind. And this is the dictionary definition of thinking. Thinking can also be defined as a cognitive means something which involves the mind. So it is a mental activity, and in it, there is actively processing and manipulating ideas, information, symbols, or concepts to generate judgments or make decisions. That is the psychological definition of thinking. Another definition is simply, thinking is information processing, which is the ability to take in information and process according to rules and produce output. That is simply giving in something into, let's say, the brain. Here we consider like the brain to be a box whereby you just put in something and then it produces an output. Another definition is thinking is the ability to do something that is in machines. That is the technical definition of thinking. Let's look at intelligence. Intelligence can be described as the ability to perceive or infer information and to retain it as knowledge to be applied to adaptive behaviors within an environment or a context. Let's look at human beings as an example. Human beings, when you tell someone something, that person is able to retain that information and then give it out to another person, or is able to tell someone else when he or she is asked to. That is what we call intelligence. So let's look at our system. It is an audience engagement and analytics. What happens in this? It detects facial and muscle movement and tension, for example, the lips, the eyebrows, the nose, and classifies them into a set of emotions like happiness, anger, neutral. Then it indicates engagement matrices such as attention span, for how long the audience was able to be attentive. Emotional peaks. At what point were the audience happy? At what point were they bored? And drop off points. Like how long did it take for them to be attentive? Let's look at AI. AI is the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. Do we have intelligent machines right now? Yes, I can say yes. I can boldly say yes. But are they able to think? That is where we are going to see. Like AI, its goal is to have computers that think. What can computers do right now? Computers are able to detect facial movements, classify emotions, and provide real-time analytics based on training data. Yes, that is what computers have so far achieved, and we as human beings have so far achieved with computers or technology. Um, it's true that computers, um, in the context of the system we are looking at, they are able to detect our movements, the movements of our faces, yes, and classify them according to the emotions which are there, which are already there, yes. And but all these happen based on the training data we have given them. So they are intelligent, they are able to give us real-time Analytics. It's able to give the presenter feedback on how the audience is behaving. Let's take an example of WhatsApp. When we are done making a video call or an audio call, yes, we are prompted to give feedback on the quality of the call. Was it bad? Was it good? And we are asked to give reasons why we think so. Was it because the audio was cracking, the voice was cracking, you couldn't hear well? Yes, that is also what this system is able to do. It is able to give us feedback on how the audience is. Are they happy? Are they bored? Are they, yes, are they sad? Are they angry? Yes, that is what it is able to do. And by this, it is intelligent, but is it able to give us why the audience is behaving like that? That's why we're saying computers are just doing something that looks very close to emotional awareness, but they do not understand the reasons behind these emotions. If we ask, why are the audience bored? They don't know. Why are the audience angry? Why are the audience happy? They do not know. They just mimic certain human perceptual abilities, and this is enough for useful engagement analysis. Yes, what we want from the machine is just uh, give us feedback. How are the audience? Yes. So I can say computers are able to learn. Yes, they scan data, store the data in memory, and use it for inferences. This is intelligence, very true, but not thinking. Yes, so computers just read the room, but do not think in this context. Humans do the thinking, come up with algorithms or ways of solving problems, and computers help us in solving these problems faster. For example, if my audience is if my audience is sad or angry or bored, what am I, the presenter, supposed to do? I'll come up with ways that is left for me to think about, but not the computer. Are computers thinking in this system or in this context? Much as the current AI machines try to think, they just simulate reasoning and language use, but they lack self-awareness, creativity, emotions, intuition, and even subjective experience. So, by this I mean the reasons why things are the way they are, or why are things happening? Why are people bad? Why are they annoyed? Why are they happy? Let's take an example at the Chinese room argument. Yeah, when you read through that argument, we can just make a conclusion that computers just behave as though they understood Chinese. And in this context, we can make a conclusion that computers just behave as though they understood people's emotions, but truthfully, they do not understand. Um, Computers only have the formal programs for interpreting emotions. They have the syntax, but not the semantics. The whole point reminds us that computers knew all along but did not understand the emotions. Yes, they know that people are sad, people are happy, people are bored, but they do not understand why people are bored or why there are those emotions. Now I can ask myself, could we ever have computers that can think? It's true, computers do not think. They only they only imitate like people's emotions. They are intelligent, yes, but they do not think. So we ask ourselves, could we ever have computers that can think? We need to know that computers house software. And this software or programs have the ability to learn, but they do not have the same modifying adaptability as the human brain. Human beings have brains. Human beings have minds. The brain can adapt to any kind of environment, but computers, are they able to adapt? Do they have the adaptability as the human brain? No. When you take a case study of the Turing test, it focuses on how well computers can imitate human behavior in order to determine whether they think or not. But has this been ever achieved by any AI or any computer or any machine? The answer is no. It has not yet. And no computer has ever passed this test. computers are currently great at specific tasks. Yes, they are great at imitating human beings. They are great at telling us how people are, how the audience is, but they do not have a wide range of knowledge on why people are behaving like this. They simply map inputs to outputs statistically. Based on the data sets we have provided them, they have learned, they are able to map people's faces to their corresponding emotions. Now let's take a look at the new advances which we expect to be on ground or we should expect in time to come. Neuromorphic computing. This uses energy efficient electrical and photonic networks modeled after biological neural networks. We are looking at a system that is able to mimic the human brain and how the brain works. But shall we be able to achieve that? Yes, maybe and maybe not. But what I'm sure of is that we are just going to be able to achieve a system that mimics the brain, but not a system which acts like which is really a brain. Just a system that mimics the brain, but not entirely the brain. Another advance is general AI frameworks. That is moving beyond the narrow task we have. Right now, computers are just doing the narrow task, but they're not yet into that deep task solving or deep problem solving. This is a pivotal concept that helps machines understand and interpret complex real world scenarios. Shall we be able to have computers that are able to solve complex problems or do real world scenario of those complex problems? Yes. The question still remains, shall we be able to achieve that? Maybe yes and maybe no. Yes, but you never know. There's nothing which is impossible. Everything is possible. Um, so these advances could potentially enable systems to reason, self-reflect, or even form internal models of self and others. But the truth is, we are not yet there. Now I'm asking myself, is human thought computational? If we can develop a computer that is able to hold a conversation indistinguishable from a human, then we can say yes, we have computers that think. But the truth is, we are not yet there. According to David Chalmers, there are two problems of consciousness, the easy and the hard ones. The easy one deals with explaining how the brain processes information, reacts, and behaves, and this can be done by AI. This can be done by any machine or any computer. But the hard one explains why there is subjective experience or why it feels like, or how it feels like, or what it feels like to be conscious. Can that be done by AI? And the answer is no. I strongly disagree with that. We cannot have AI that is able to feel like what it is to be conscious because they lack consciousness. So I could conclude by saying AI is currently using artificial neural networks inspired by the brain. They're artificial. They cannot do beyond what humans assign them to do. Right now, they're not able to do beyond what we tell them to do. And I can conclude by saying no, we do not have computers that think currently. The weak AI systems are designed to perform specific tasks. That is true. They are very powerful in this task. I cannot disagree with that. But they lack human qualities. That is very true. They lack emotions. They lack um, the ability to feel the way they're feeling or what it feels like to be conscious. The question of whether we can have computers that think or not, yeah, is rather more philosophical than technical. Much as computers are increasingly getting intelligent and transforming society, they do not possess the ability to think on their own. That is very true. They do not possess the ability to think on their own. And that is why I'm saying computers do not think. And there's a very high possibility that we shall not have computers that are able to think, even with time to come. But maybe consciousness could emerge from complexity and computers achieve human-like thinking. Maybe, we never know, because everything is possible. There's nothing that is impossible. So that is the end of my presentation. Can stop here for now.